In Pokemon Showdown's Champions League, a tournament where the best Pokemon Showdown players play, I had to play NU, a tier I had never played before. So I started practicing and I realized I'm going to use Hail. Hail is good in OU, so it must be good in NU. NU has threats like Alolan Sandslash, and it has threats like Fish's friend Arctovish. I was going to build the greatest Hail team of all time. Well, that was the plan, but it turns out that Snow Warning is banned from NU, so I guess someone had this idea before me. But when life gives you lemons, you use a Gigalith. Instead, I was going to use a Sand team. I started off with the obvious Sandstream Gigalith. Gigalith is a bulky stealth rocker with a high defense stat, but also a good special defense stat because rock types get a special defense boost in Sand. Then, I added Sandslash. And for those of you unfamiliar with Sandslash, you can think of it as an NU version of Extrachill. It doesn't have that steel typing, but it can still Swords Dance and sweep you with Sand Rush. After I added Sandslash, I used the most unique Sand Sweeper in probably Pokemon history. I used Sand Rush Lycanroc. Now, Sandslash is a worse version of Extrachill, but Lycanroc is completely unique. There is no OU equivalent of Lycanroc. Lycanroc is a glass cannon by every definition. It has a good attack stat, a good speed stat, a lot of good moves, but no bulk. So it's kind of like two opposite type of sweepers. You have a bulky Sandslash and a purely offensive Lycanroc. These three were going to make my Sand core. But as you can probably guess by now, I'm pretty weak to a very important typing, water, and also grass. So for that reason, I used a Choice Banded Decidueye. And Choice Banded Decidueye not only covered my water and grass weakness, but it also gave me a way to break down the very popular Vaporeon plus Mudsdale core. These four Pokemon would form the true offensive power of my team. Then to add on to that, I used a Xatu. Xatu was going to be my defensive pivot. It was going to be able to switch into attacks and then teleport out. And just to increase that pivot capability, I used it with Eject Button. And what Eject Button does is when you get hit by attack, you can switch out. This is going to be a good way for me to get Pokemon like Lycanroc in. Then, because I had a defensive pivot, I also used an offensive pivot in Dragalge. And Dragalge is really powerful with Draco Meteor, but it's also a good pivot with Flip Turn. Draco Meteor can force you into maybe your Steel type, which I can Flip Turn into and go to Sandslash. So overall, this is a really fun Sand team. I'll be putting the importable in the description if you want to use it. But yeah, let's get right into the game. So I brought a hyper-offensive Sand team, and my opponent also brought a hyper-offensive team, but he was using hyper-offense with Sticky Web. So we see probably a Sticky Web Galvantula with a lot of sweepers like Swords Dance, Toxicroak, Golurk, Swords Dance, Silvally, X-Cloud with Choice Specs, and then Talonflame with Swords Dance. So it was going to be a battle of offense. I had an offensive team, he had an offensive team. Who was going to be able to land the first blow and then keep punching? Because when you have offense versus offense, the game is largely going to become about momentum. Who is going to attack and who is going to defend? And if you're attacking with an offensive team, you're going to do a lot better than when you're trying to defend with an offensive team. So I led with Sandslash and he led with Galvantula. And my thought process when I led Sandslash was actually, well, the obvious lead for me would be leading Gigalith. Gigalith gets my Stealth Rock up, it gets my Sand up, and it counter leads Galvantula. I thought, you know what, he's not going to lead Galvantula into the Gigalith, he might lead something like Golurk predicting my Gigalith. And if you notice, I don't really have a Golurk switch-in. I'm weak to Poltergeist and I'm weak to Earthquake. So nothing on my team can really take that Poltergeist well at all. So I thought he would counter lead Gigalith with Golurk. So that is why I led with knockoff Sandslash. So I get the lead prediction wrong here, but it's not the end of the world. So what I do is I go to Gigalith now, and I take what I expected to be a Bug Buzz, but it's actually an Energy Ball. And this was kind of the plan. The plan was I'm going to go Sandslash to predict the Golurk. If it works out well, then cool, it's good. But if it doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world, because I can still go Gigalith on the Galvantula. So I go to Gigalith here, and now he kind of has a decision to make. Does he try and get Sticky Web up or not? The challenge is that I always have a Xatu, and I can pivot Xatu in on the Sticky Web. Now obviously I would have to risk getting hit by Thunder, but it's a risk he has to account for, and it's not so easy to get Sticky Web up even though I have a Xatu which dies to Thunder. So I'm expecting him Maybe he'll get Sticky Web up, maybe he'll Energy Ball, maybe he'll Thunder, predicting my Xatu. I'm not really sure what to do. He might even go Golurk here as well. So I decide to play it safe. I'm just going to play it safe, keep it simple, keep it calm. I use Rock Blast and he goes to Golurk. So a really good play from him. And you'll notice Golurk was a good play for more than one reason. But the thing it did was it covered Gigalith and it covered Xatu. So a really good play from my opponent, and he basically covered both of my logical options. If I wanted to, I could have predicted going Decidueye, predicting the Golurk, but that would have been a really advanced play and I wasn't comfortable making that play. So he makes a really good predict, and now I'm kind of in a tough spot. I don't have anything that can switch into Golurk. So what I do is I decide, you know what, the game is not going to be won by switching in. I'm going to have to be faster and be stronger. So I'm okay with sacrificing a Pokemon purely for momentum. So I go to Decidueye, and I decide I don't have a good switch in, I'm going to sacrifice Decidueye. So I go to Decidueye, I sacrifice it, and now I go to Lycanroc. And Lycanroc has Crunch, which will threaten out Golurk. And one interesting thing to notice about the Golurk, it used Darkest Lariat and not Poltergeist. And presumably the reason he did that was because my team is so weak to Poltergeist, he probably assumed I had an itemless Pokemon. And in NU, because of how powerful Golurk is, in NU you see teams typically run an itemless Pokemon specifically to deal with Golurk. So he probably assumed I was itemless Xatu, for example, and that's why he used Darkest Lariat. Similarly, you might see itemless Xatu on teams, you might see itemless Rotom No. So you typically see a lot, and I didn't happen to have one, so he used Darkest Lariat to play it safe versus the Xatu. But now I go to Lycanroc, and now I'm threatening a Crunch. And what does he have to switch into Crunch? Everything is going to get hit really hard, and that's kind of the benefit of using Lycanroc. It hits hard, it hits fast. So what is he going to do? The only thing that can really take a hit is Toxicroak. Toxicroak will take maybe 30% from Crunch. Now, in normal game situation, I'll be pretty happy with that. I'll take the 30% on Toxicroak, I'll switch out, and I'll come back later. But momentum is so big in offense versus offense, I did not want to give up any momentum. 30% was not good enough for me. So I decided to predict the Toxicroak switch in, and I used Stone Edge predicting the switch. So he goes to Toxicroak, and I Stone Edge getting the hit, and I hit for 55 damage, and then he's going to use Sucker Punch, get some chip damage on me, and I'm going to Stone Edge again, and I'm going to get the kill. And if I crunched, if I played it safe there, then I wouldn't have gotten the damage I needed. I would have been forced to switch out maybe to Dragalge or maybe even Xatu. So I did not want to give up the momentum, so I made a risky play of predicting the switch, and I was able to get the Stone Edge on Toxicroak. And what also influenced my decision was that I felt that I'm so weak to Golurk, he would not sacrifice the Golurk on the Crunch. I make a pretty decent play, I get the prediction right, I knock out the Toxicroak. I do take Life Orb Recoil, which is important to know. And now he goes to Silvally Steel. Now Silvally Steel is one-hit KO'd by close combat. I know that, he knows that. But what I don't know is he trying to bait me, because he might go to Talonflame on the close combat just to get Flame Body to burn me. So I don't really know what his plan is right now. So I'm in two minds right now. Do I make the even more aggressive play of Stone Edge predicting the switch? Or do I simply close combat? I decide to play it safe now. I was aggressive the previous turn, and I played it safe here. I close combat here, Galvantula, and I'm taking Life Orb damage. Sand is running out as well. So good play for my opponent. I close combat again to get the kill. And now I have one turn left. And again, he has to go to something. He goes to Golurk. And here I'm feeling good. I got my predictions right. And I make probably the worst play you'll see in a long time. Instead of using Crunch, I used close combat predicting the switch, which in hindsight didn't really make much sense. I just thought he might go to Silvally. That's going to be the worst play you've seen in a long time. But I go to Sandslash and I knock off because I outspeed the Golurk. I am Jolly Sandslash. He goes to Talonflame, which is kind of like an offensive set, I believe. But fortunately, I do have my Gigalith in the back to take the hit, so I go to Gigalith pretty easily. And he's starting to look really weak to Sandslash. So I decide here to get up Stealth Rock, and the reason I want Stealth Rock is so that Talonflame can't come back in later. So now I reveal my hidden set, the Eject button. I switch in Eject button Xatu into the Talonflame. That lets me go to Sandslash, and I believe this is an offensive set. You run offensive sets on webs. So I know it's not Will-O-Wisp or Toxic, So I go to Sand Slash, I look at the Talonflame, and I start dancing on it. It uses Brave Bird, not going to be enough damage. I do have to risk the Flame Body Burn here, which was kind of not planned out well, but I still get the Rapid Spin here. And now a Sand Slash in Sand with the attack boost. This is Excadrill and OU, it's Sand Slash and NU, and he's just going to die to consecutive Earthquakes. And that is the story of how I made my NU debut. There was a change of plans, I couldn't use Hail, I used Sand, and ultimately I got the job done. Credits to my opponent, he played well with the Golurk, but Sand just had such a good matchup, and I don't think I played too badly either. So yeah, if you like this type of tournament coverage, make sure to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments what you think. Thank you.